The material and information contained within the Chatting with Cumberland podcast is for general information purposes only. You should not rely upon the material or information on the website as a basis for making any business, legal, or other decisions. While we endeavor to keep the content and resources of Chatting with Cumberland current and accurate, the Cumberland Board of County Commissioners, Administration, and all departments and affiliates make no representations or warranties of any kind, express or implied, about the completeness, accuracy, reliability, suitability, or availability with respect to services, show content, and guest opinions contained on the Chatting with Cumberland for any purpose. The views and opinions expressed on the show are not representative of that of county commissioners, administration, or employees unless expressly specified. The Chatting with Cumberland podcast will be discussing sensitive topics such as suicide, sexual abuse, drug use, mental health, and domestic violence. Viewer discretion is advised. Hi, everybody. This is Chatting with Cumberland. Beth Thomas.
Hi, Frank.
What's up?
How you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm even better now that we have a special guest here in the studio today with us, Mr. John Fuqua. What's going on, John?
Another day in America, Frank.
Amen, brother.
Chatting with Cumberland, baby.
There you go. I've been so excited to all the viewers out there to have Mr. John Fuqua. John Fuqua is a graduate from William Patterson and currently works at Complete Care doing community outreach with the good folks in Cumberland County. He's the president of Life Worth Living, which is a nonprofit that serves youth in various services. We have anti-gang services. We have community sports projects, right? Basketball.
Absolutely.
We have mentorship.
That's right.
Right? That's offered by your organization. Tell us a little bit about it, John. What do you do?
And education, life worth living. The words speak volumes about what it's about. I figured a while ago that every life is worth living. I grew up in Amity Heights apartment complex in the 1980s and 90s. When I was growing up there, it was called Animal Heights. People from my community wasn't expected to make it.
Right.
We didn't value life. We didn't understand the importance of giving ourselves our very best at making it. So I decided to create my own organization. Over the time of the pandemic, I'm sitting home. I was doing my resume. It's funny. And I looked at my resume and I realized I worked for maybe 10 or 15 nonprofits over the last 20 years. I was good enough to implement programming for everybody. And I decided it was time to do it for myself. And I decided to take a little bit of something from everybody I worked for, at least the good stuff, and I created Life Worth Living. It's a platform and an opportunity for young people between the ages of 10 and 25 to get their life in order. A lot of us didn't grow up with the structure of saying, I want to aspire to be X, Y, Z growing up. I had some friends where their kids are born and their parents are third or fourth generation graduates of Princeton, and right away those kids are wearing Princeton apparel from birth to 18, 19 years old. In the community I grew up in, and in my family, nobody graduated from college, so I wasn't going to be a second or third generation anything. So with Life Worth Living, I want to change that for young people. I want them to understand that they can start dreaming about tomorrow now. And
Right.
the idea, understanding that your life is worth living, I'm going to help you create those steps and put you in positions. Our first lesson that we do inside of our curriculum is called the Blueprint. And the first question I ask every young person is, what's the reality of your life? Let's talk about the reality of your life. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about how we're going to change your life.
Sure.
And it's going to be based on what they want to do, not me. I think one of the things that we used to do all the time was we thought we knew what people wanted. Inside of Life Worth Living, I'm going to explore what you want. And every resource I got under my thumb, I'm going to use every tentacle I got to reach out and to connect those kids and those young people to those resources.
And we thank you so much for being here. And just for the viewers also, we're going to have an hour-long testimony with John Fuqua that will set a link in the description for you guys, so you can have the long-form content of Chatting with Cumberland as well. But this one, we're going to keep it shorter and to the point, and give you some resources on what John does and how to, at the very least, be aware of gang involvement in your neighborhood, and at the same time, how to identify certain elements of gang life. And additionally, mental health is one of the topics that we're covering today as well. And we all know, John, that with mental health, from what I've heard, it's like being in a war zone at times. If you're in the hood and you got shots going off, and you have, people murdered in the street or in front of their home or innocent bystanders, that can cause I'm sure, a mental toll on the person in that environment.
Absolutely, Frank. Just an example of that for me. On December the 24th, 2008, my nephew was shot. We got a call. My phone rang around 11:30. You're talking about 31 minutes before Christmas. We get a call that he was shot. Everybody in my family got the same call, rushed to the scene of him getting shot. My mother was in her car in the passenger seat. My stepfather was driving, and my mom had a heart attack. When I pulled up to the scene, I didn't know that the body on the ground that night was the body of my mother until I got out of my car. So I jumped on my knees right away, and I started performing CPR on her because with these hands right here, I was CPR certified in high school, got the same certification when I graduated from college and started working in the group home. So I knew I had to perform CPR on my mom. At the same time, maybe 800 feet away, my nephew was on the ground dying from gunshot wounds. So my family was split that night. Half the group was at my side, the other half was at my mom's side. Make a long story short, my mom was eventually picked up by the ambulance, taken in sparing and violent, and she was dead upon arrival. So for me, I passed away on an operating table 6 hours later. So for me, the idea of going out Bridgeton Village, where my family still live today, was hard. It was hard for me to go down Lincoln Avenue because I would pass the spot that my mom basically died at. And to avoid that, I would go a different way to get into Bridgeton Village. So that was just a mental block on me, and I wasn't even living there.
And this was in Bridgeton?
And this is in Bridgeton to this day. And this happened in 2008. You're talking about it's 2020 now, and I still get chills when I go up on that street. So I can't imagine for some of my young people. So we got kids that's dealing with PTSD every single day.
Sure.
And the P for them is not post, it's present, because they're the mental hurdle that they gotta jump over is every day, opening their door. I got kids that live in neighborhoods where there's still memorials up of family members that were murdered across the street from where they live. See, because we can't choose where we live. But I also, my testimony with that is the best thing that happened to me from the result of my mother dying and my nephew getting killed was I had to take a long, hard look at myself and say, it's time, at least in my community, it's time to really look in the mirror and say we need therapy. Therapy matters. For a long time in the African American community, it was taboo. It was, you good, you don't need to talk to nobody, you don't want nobody in your business, but at the end of the day, you do. You need somebody in your business, because one of the things that I learned at one of my first therapy sessions was I used to pack everything. Pack.
Sure.
I wouldn't really talk about nothing until then I would explode. Because I was always handling it. Because, again, in my community, we was taught to handle your own business. Don't have nobody in your business. Don't be talking about what's going on. And I do school presentations, and one of the things I say in my presentations, the worst lesson my mother ever taught me. God bless my mom. She was probably one of the smartest and strongest people I knew. The worst lesson she ever taught me was whatever happens in our house stays in our house. That was the worst lesson she ever taught me. Because what that does is that cripple you as far as your voice. So mental health is important, man. And like I said, the best thing that happened to me was I got therapy. I got therapy in 2010. I was inside of that therapy up until 2016. Best thing I ever did. Everything that I do now, even inside of Life Worth Living, we connect people to therapy.
Sure.
Working at Complete Care, we have some of the best mental health professionals in the South Jersey. I deal with the Guidance Center. I deal with Ashley Todd. Gateway has a new mental health portion of their program.
Yes.
So mental health is imperative. So I push that now, man.
Sure. And I think they're kind of hand in hand.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of integration between mental health and also gang life and just living in a rough neighborhood. Now, myself, go ahead, Beth.
No,
did
I
you
was
have
just
a
going to
question?
say, I know Melissa Niles and the Mental Health Board are working very strongly on changing the stigma of mental health and trying to make it no different than going to the dentist. And we've said that in a few different episodes, too, about how it's just as important as any other part of our health.
Yeah. just as a first generation immigrant myself here from Greece and Italy, my parents came here off the boat, and we spent a lot of time with our grandparents as children because my mother and father were working to provide the so-called American dream, right? And they worked really hard, but when my grandparents first got here, because they arrived prior to, my parents, they got sponsored, and we ended up on Landis Avenue in Vineland, which is kind of like smack dab in the middle of the hood, And there was a lot of diversity where we came from. It was just different, you know what I mean? And the access, what I found is access to certain treatments. It was very similar to the African American community, where if you had issues, you ain't talk about it. You just packed it down and kept it moving, And we had so many people approach us, to help and lend a hand, to kind of help move things forward. And I realized that over time, people don't adapt as well to environments like that. You can't sustain it, the adaptability, without some sort of trauma or, And what I wanted to ask you was, what do you think the first step for somebody who would want to identify gang violence, or that may be involved in it, or that may have an issue with mental health, what's the first step that you would recommend as an outreach worker?
To be honest with you, the first step that I would suggest would be sit down and talk to somebody.
Okay.
When I say somebody, I talk about a mental health professional. Talk about somebody like myself. You got people like Uncle Hassan in Vineland. You got Chris Wilson. There's a lot of people in Cumberland County that you can talk to. And on my website, Life Worth Living, I connect you to some of those resources. Right. The first thing you got to do is find out what's going on with the individual. We talked about it before we got on the air, but one of the things that people have to understand here, especially in Bridgeton, Cumberland County, our gang culture is different than anywhere else. Being a Bridgeton kid, being a person that live in Bridgeton now, our gang structure is different.
How so?
We're dealing with, right now we're in the middle of a 20-year war between sides of town, north side versus south side. It ain't about red or blue. Our gang issue is about where you live at. Incident happened at the Elks Home 2003 here in the city of Bridgeton. At the end of the night, 3 people was dead. And it was the worst thing that ever happened. Our town split up. And we've had people that's been beefing with family members, man. I had a family member. I had a family where the lady had kids with one guy that was from the north side, the other guy from the south side, and their kids arguing. They're siblings. They're arguing.
Oh boy.
You know what I mean?
Does it have anything to do with the prisons that we have? Do you see different gangs coming down?
Yes and no, but that's definitely a topic. That's definitely a heavy topic. One of the issues, especially with that prison, while it didn't directly link us with gang activity, it opened up the door of Pandora's box for making our county a hotbed for gang relocation. You look at the crime in Millville, Vineland, and Bridgeton right now. Over the last 12 years, some of the most heinous acts you've ever seen. A lot of it is gang related to the point where some of these gangs want to be known as the ones that's doing the most heinous things.
Clout.
They want to be loud.
Yeah.
They clout chasing.
Right.
And that's a new term. It used to be looking for stain, but now it's clout.
It used to be bragging rights in the more innocent version.
Rights,
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Now it's different.
now it's clout. So we got people doing shootings in broad daylight, out in the open in front of kids. We just had a gang shooting over by Buck Shooting Road School where the guys ride dirt bikes at. Kids and families were out there. They did a drive-by. Gang related, and again here, there's no real hierarchy. So if a group of kids want to form a gang in the next hour, they're going to form one.
Right.
So there's no pecking order.
Sounds like more of a clique.
Yeah, so we probably got
Small
200
sets.
gangs.
Yeah.
And that's the culture.
Sounds
So-
like the safe places aren't safe anymore for the
Nah,
kids.
it's real, it's real. Small town USA, the dream and the hope of small town USA is gone. But what we can do at this point, we know where the trouble is. We can pinpoint it, and we just have to have honest conversations. And I say honest conversations. I tell other people all the time, it starts at home. If I know my son or my daughter, I'm having difficulties with them at 8, 9, 10, 11 years old, difficulties at home, difficulties in school, I reach out now to my extended family, uncles, aunts, grandfather, cousins. That don't work. I reach out now to the community, clergy, teachers, coaches, because I'm having problems with him or her inside of my house. I don't want this problem to end up coming to the community because him or her, they're getting bigger every year. And he used to just play with matches, but now he want to grab grenades, or he was poking people with toothpicks. Now he playing with knives, and that might turn into guns. So it's a small issue now, but it's going to get bigger, right? So what we have to do is be number one, be honest about what's going on. That's the bottom line with everything. Honest. Okay, my kid not really listening. I need help, and now let's get them the help. And so we won't be surprised and going, I can't believe that happened. Well, did you pay attention to little Tommy when he was 11, when he was 12, when he was 13, when he was 14? Now he's on the front page of the local newspaper at 17 for killing a kid for whatever.
Sure.
So
It's
Going back to the mental health piece real quick before we forget, for the viewers over there, we have a clip for you that we filmed from the testimony of J.O.B. We wanted to play it regarding mental health and our participant's story, which we have linked in the long form. It's called The Testimony of J.O.B. if you want to watch the whole thing. We're going to play a little snippet now and get your reaction when we come back.
All right.
How's that sound?
Great.
All right, right on. And how do you think those experiences shaped you in your adult life?
That's very easily answered. My adult life became reckless hedonism, doing anything to escape pain. I became an alcoholic very early. I became a drug addict. I resisted authority in any attempts to change. I didn't want to get better. I wanted to get worse. I didn't care anymore. Everything and anything was a reason to escape the vast and crippling amounts of pain that had been distilled into me from a very young age. Throughout my life, there were many such attempts, and I have the great luck to be here today with a drastically different story to tell than when I started.
And tell us a little bit about that. How was your experience in the psych ward? What's that environment like?
Absolutely dehumanizing. There are movies and books on the subject. If you're familiar with One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, it's very, very similar. You're treated as an object in most facilities. People talk to you as if you're crazy. Being ill doesn't make you crazy. The things you go through don't make you crazy. And if somebody's telling you that you are crazy, then they're wrong. It's okay to struggle, and it's okay to suffer, and it's okay to hurt, but that doesn't make you crazy.
And we're back. From the testimony of J.O.B., there was a little clip from Mr. John Fuqua. John, what'd you think?
I think J.O.B. was spot on. Hurting don't make you crazy. I think it's important for us to be wise with our words. I think too often we put tags on people, and those tags are hard to shake. We live in a world with labels. Everything is a label. And what we end up doing once we put a label on something, we don't want to ever change it. So if he's considered crazy at 9, he's going to be crazy at 20. And I think that's unfair, especially if you get help.
Yeah.
Especially if you find out, what was really bothering you. He said something about his substance abuse, how he wanted to get worse. He wasn't trying to get better. I see that every day in the community that I grew up in.
What's it like?
Where it was something bothering somebody and they didn't know how to ask for help. And like J.O.B. said, they self-medicated. They drank every day. They smoked every day. And we talk about coming down off that high or from being drunk. Those same issues are going to still be there.
Do you think that numbness kind of like contributes to the violence, the actual
absolutely,
facilitation of
because
the
what
violence?
happens is, Frank, you got to understand, we start living with the mindset that we have the efforts, where we don't give a F about anything. And what it's really saying is at this point, you just don't value your life. It's not about anybody else, but you don't find the worth for yourself right now. And that's something that's heavy on a lot of people. And I think one of the things that you start seeing is more substance abuse. Right now, I'm working towards my CADC.
Right.
One of the million things that I'm doing.
That's a tough road, brother.
And you know it is, but I'm gonna be getting ready to take my test. In the next
man,
couple
congratulations!
weeks.
You'll do
So
great. I know
I'm
you'll do
moving
great.
pretty fast.
So if those people don't value themselves, then how are they going to value other people?
Can't expect them to.
Good point.
Can't expect them to. It's funny. 5 years ago, the state of New Jersey came up with for schools week of respect. And I was going around the state doing presentations on respect, and I'm going, something about this just isn't right. It's not really sitting well with me. But we come in and we speak about what the schools want us to talk about, and I'm going, respect is something that should be taught at home. If you don't respect, and if you don't respect yourself, you're not going to respect anybody else. That's the same way when it comes to loving yourself. If you don't love yourself, you ain't going to love anybody else.
That's right.
So you won't mind harming yourself. If you're already harming yourself with substances, what's going to stop you from harming the next person?
Right.
Nothing.
And that could lead into the gangs.
Exactly.
Yeah. Are there any organizations like Life Worth Living that you would recommend that people check out?
Oh, absolutely. Right now here in the Cumberland County area, we have unbelievable opportunities. We got a group called Nurture with Love. It's a nonprofit. They meet every week with girls that have either been abused physically, mentally, emotionally. They meet with young girls from the ages of 9 to 19. Every single week at Gateway Family Success Center.
Community Action Partnership.
Yeah, we hosted them for 2 years at the Yam Center.
That's
Great
where I knew them from,
organization.
the Home
They're
Center.
really
Okay.
amazing.
Yeah, and that organization, let me tell you something. Risha Gillis does an unbelievable job.
Yeah.
It's a family-based organization, and it's geared towards girls right here in Cumberland County. We don't see enough of that here in our county. Tracy Wells Huggins has an unbelievable program called Far Above Rubies. Me and Tracy do those programs in area high schools where she take young women and tell them that they're precious gems, and she's cultivating them. It's amazing. Another group that I really lean on a lot right now is some young guys from Fairfield Township, Akeem Williams and Rodane. They have this program called This Thing of Ours, and it's a mentor program. Here's some guys who did a little bit of time in jail. They got themselves together. Now they got skilled trades. They got their own businesses. They got an unbelievable dog kennel.
Yeah.
And they're giving back to the community. This year they launched their first basketball league during COVID with a mentor piece. They end up connecting with CCBU, which is Cumberland County Black Union, which is another unbelievable organization that's doing great things in the community. They're doing drill teams, step teams, again, mentorship. And every single person that I dealt with over the last 6 months, we also talked about mental health. So everything we do is connected to recreation, mental health, and education.
So one of the things, John, that I really wanted to bring up quickly was one of the things, me not being from this business, and one of my jobs is administrating grants for at-risk youth for children, right? And I've got the pleasure of meeting with John during a monitoring that we had when he used to work with Steered Straight. And I saw him speaking to the kids, and that's where our relationship kind of began. I got to sit in for an hour as he went over the newspaper, the daily newspaper, and about all the crime that was happening regarding gangs and murders that were happening. And it was really powerful. And one of the things I wanted to kind of bring up is we're looking for folks like you, John, as far as the ideology of myself and my 20 colleagues and counterparts, which is the New Jersey Association for Youth Services Commission Administrators, right? And it's beginning, the population's kind of like a younger group now. Like we have a lot of new blood coming into the position that are thinking differently, that they're thinking a little bit more critically and approaching people like yourself, which we feel to believe are credible messengers, right? And what I wanted to ask you, as a person who's had a relationship with working with juvenile justice professionals, your professional relationship at Complete Care, your outreach work, your knowledge, your intimate knowledge of the devastation that, gang violence brings, what would you say is the best approach that you've figured out recently to contact your county, right, as a person who's on the other side, a non-county employee working in outreach, to connect with their local youth services commissions, right, and county government? What success do you have?
If I say that, then it's going to seem like I'm being biased, but, and it's recent, it's you. What if I say this? I gave you a call 3 weeks ago, because I often get calls from parents. I got a call from a parent. Kid had lost his way. Gangs, dabbling in drugs, not going to school. Mom called me. The first thing I do from my position of life worth living, I go directly. I think one of the best things to do is direct contact, without a doubt.
Right, especially this time.
We live in real time, Frank, and one of the things that bother me more than anything, and I want to be honest with y'all, is there's too many loopholes. When somebody calls for help, there's too many loopholes to get help. But if I want a gun, there's no loopholes. If I want drugs, I go, listen, drugs, with drugs, I go directly to the source.
Drug dealers don't discriminate,
I don't have to
man.
do a background check for these drugs.
Right.
They don't make me wait, ain't no time period,
Right.
none of that. He don't got to go meet with his supplier first to give me the drugs or the gun. Or if I want to join the gang,
Right.
I have access right away.
Availability.
But to do anything positive, it's hoops, it's hurdles,
What
it's
type
mountains.
of insurance do you have? Where do you live?
And some of the mountains
What's
got
your
oil
time
on
frame?
them, so you got to climb up an oily mountain, right?
Yeah.
I go, because like I said a few minutes ago in the last segment, I'm going to use every resource I have. I pick up the phone, I go out, do an intake on this kid. I go, boom, 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 he has XYZ problems. Who can I call? Ding, 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 ding.
And by me, ladies and gentlemen, he means your local youth services administrator.
Youth service administrator. I call this guy.
Right.
I give him a rundown. Before I give him a rundown, I get permission from his mom. I tell his mom she's going to sign an intake form. And on my intake form, one of the things I get to do is I get to talk about what's going on with the kid to other resources. That's just a claim that's out of my form. So I could talk to Frank about the kid, right? And Frank goes, I got boom, boom, boom. He gave me a rundown on what he got. And every single person he named to me reached out, right? So now we got this kid wraparound services. Those services aren't as accessible to everybody because, number one, the first part of the whole thing was mom picked up the phone.
Yes.
A lot of parents don't call. And one of the easiest things that end up happening is we start blaming now. They're not helping us. There's nothing here in the county. I can attest that there are things here. It's just about accessing them. And it's also about first being honest. I have a problem. I need help. Our county has a vast list of organizations that will help.
Right.
We have a process to get help, but you first got to admit to wanting help.
Yep. And if you're located in Cumberland County, ladies and gentlemen, the best website that you can really access, there's two of them. One is Aunt Bertha. It's a searchable database for all social services, from therapy to location of food pantry to senior services, legal counsel. If you want to find the direct link to that, it's on our website, the New Jersey Administrator's website, which is NJACYSCA. Please visit. It depends on what county that you're in. If you're located in New Jersey, you can go directly to your county's page, which is updated frequently, and learn more about youth services commissions and administrators. So, John, today we have a special message for you that was submitted from Mr. Wade Blvd, a community member here, also former military, and one of the great guys I've had the pleasure of working with alongside of you as well. And he's got a question for you. You want to hear it?
Yes, sir.
All right. Mr. Wade Blvd, President of the Youth Love Movement.
Good morning, good people. My name is Wade Blvd. I'm out here in Millville, New Jersey. I want to salute John Fuqua, today's special guest. Big salute, big bro, for all the things you've been doing in the community, out there frontlining and affecting change. Also want to salute Frank and Beth for putting together Chatting with Cumberland podcast. This is a great platform for us to address some of the issues that we face on a daily basis here in Cumberland County. Question for John Fuqua. in your opinion, when it comes to us helping those who are involved in gang life and the mental issues that are attached with it, that comes along with participating in gang activity, what do you think are some of the ways that we could reach these young men and women who have been victims or participated in gang violence, lost loved ones to, gun violence? It seems like it's a never-ending story, man, or a never-ending battle when it comes to where do we stop. There's always retaliation. There's always, the pull of being, lifers in the gang. What do you think is the best remedy for as community activists and the greater community and reaching these young men and women and helping them have a change of mind? Thank you.
Thank you, Quan, for submitting that video box to Chatting with Cumberland. Mr. Fuqua, do you have any thoughts on what you just heard?
That was a pretty good question that Quan posed. For me, again, and I don't want to sound basic, but for me it's simple. It's about conversation. You got to be able to offer them something else. One of the things that we get caught up in, we go, we're going to get them out the gang. What you giving them? What you giving them? You're going to take away this, you got to replace it with something else. What are you giving them? For this, there's no cookie cutter process for this because everybody's situation different. I could have a kid that's involved in a gang right now that only joined because he was jumped by the opposing gang. I had a kid pull a gun out on me in I'm pretty old. 2001, I'm in Newark, New Jersey, and I'm in a neighborhood that I frequent. I was working at the Boys and Girls Club at the time, Grape Street. And I said cuz like three or four times, just a word of endearment here in South Jersey. Kid pulled a gun out on me and said, yo, if you say the cuz one more time, I'm gonna shoot you. He said, because
Was he a blood?
This is a blood neighborhood.
Yeah.
And I just said a word, but I said it 3 times.
Blood say, what up, blood? Crips say, what up, cuz?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Part of the lingo.
He had a sawed-off shotgun. He cocked it and he pointed it at me.
Man.
And when the hootie hoo and the other gang members came up into the schoolyard, and that shot call, I'll never forget it. God bless Ray. He's a young man that got murdered in 2005. He was the big homie. He was 20 years old, and he go, that's Mr. John. Put that gun down. And I said, Ray, when y'all started letting this kid that had that gun on me was like 14, I said, how was this kid in your gang? And the young boy said, well, cuz man. He said because the Crips jumped me 2 weeks ago. So he joined the gang because people in a rival gang beat him up. So he's fresh in, right?
And he needed the protection.
He's looking for protection. Everybody joined for a different reason. You might have a kid living in a house where there's little or no money, poverty, real low. When we talk about poverty, mom might not be no electric on. The gas might be off in the winter. There's probably little or no food because mom on drugs, so she's selling the food stamps. So this kid is joining because he or she, because girls also do the same thing, need food. A lot of these kids are joining gangs for some essentials. Right. It's very rare that you got some kids that's joining just because they want to look cool. Well, that kid I got a call from a couple weeks ago, he want to join the gang to look cool. He live in a nice suburban neighborhood. His nearest neighbor is a half mile to the right, half mile to the left. Mom works, all the siblings work. He got a good life. So every case is different. So that's how I answer that. Answer the Quan would be, we got to find out what's going on with that kid first. And the best way, again, is going to be straight line question. Why you joined the gang? What's going on? How long you been banging? Some kids might not really be banging. They might be repping the gangs, 2 different things. Some kids just might be associated with gangs. So that's something else in itself. Let me encourage you to be associated with something different. I'm going to go talk to the head of me personally, based on my comfortability here in Cumberland County, I can talk to the heads of every gang. I have that ability right now.
And that's what makes you a credible
Yeah,
messenger.
so I get to knock on the door. If I'm not familiar with them, I got people that I consider friends that are. I grew up here, and a lot of my friends came home from prison, and they were already in gangs. You're in prison for 15, 20 years. Either you get down or lay down. It's just the culture. And what people don't understand is those people are eventually coming home. Now, because he was banging blood or whatever, a Crip in prison, he was banging then, but he might not be banging now. And if I'm not banging now, I can't never leave a gang, but I might not be banging. Banging mean I'm active.
Thank
so
you.
Not
I was just going to ask you what
banging
you meant by
mean
that.
actively involved in shootings, actively involved in gang, day-to-day life. Some guys might represent a gang, but they're not banging for no gang no more. So it's a difference. But again, and that's the same way with our kids. You don't know what they're doing. Some of them probably done got rejected by the gang, so they're just hangers on and they want to look like they're part of. Those kids are very dangerous. So every situation is different, and what I would encourage a parent to do is to pick up a phone and make a phone call. Talk to somebody credible. And whether we want to admit it or not, especially the majority of the minorities that I know, African Americans, and this is where it's really hitting more at in Cumberland County, whether you want to believe it or not, it's hitting our community more. Somebody in your family banging, man. A couple years ago, we said in the next 5 years, one out of five of us will all have somebody in our lives affected by the drug epidemic.
Yeah.
Raise your hand if you know somebody. If you've been. So we've reached those numbers. It's the same thing with the gang banging in Cumberland County.
Yeah.
1 out of 5 of us know or got a family member that's banging. That's a fact in the African American community. I can speak on it.
Can I just ask you a question about your relationship with the people who are the leaders of the gangs? Because I do understand that, like people are going to be in the gangs. So what do you give to them to have them leave those children alone? Because I can't imagine they're going to leave every child alone or they would have no followers.
What I give to them is a lot of guys, at least my age, I'm 43 years old, a lot of guys that's banging, they don't want no younger kids with them.
Okay.
They're not doing that. That's why I said one of the things that we, TV and the reality are two different things. We also know for a long time it was all about strength in numbers, right? But like I told y'all a few minutes ago, here our culture is different. It ain't really no shot callers, so people can make gangs up every day. So at the end of the day, it's about what's happening here. But what I do with those older guys that I do know, I do a weekly or every 2-week check-in with a lot of these guys. What's going on? What's good? A lot of them want to get out, but a lot of them can't. A lot of them got records where nobody gonna touch them. You say, oh, get it expunged. Some stuff you can't get expunged, dog. You can't get murder expunged. Now, I can't encourage this man over here to go start working for $8 an hour when he knows it's gonna take him 1,000,000 years to get to a livable wage. That's just a fact.
It's unrealistic.
It's not really realistic. So, but what I'm saying, a lot of my brothers doing is they are pivoting and they're creating their own businesses, whether they're getting their CDLs, they're doing trucking, they're doing different construction trade, things of that nature. So that's happening, and that's changing the culture of a lot of people here. It's a lot of former gang bangers that are business owners, that are employed now, that are creating opportunities.
Do you work with them to
Yes,
have
absolutely.
the kids then have a mentor?
Absolutely.
that
One of my best friends, committed a murder in 1995. He was 19 at the time. A guy actually came and we were shooting dice out in Emily Heights, where I took you out to play basketball. Funny
Little
story.
CeeLo?
Right out there by that basketball
Yeah.
court. We out there shooting dice, and it's probably like 20 of us. A car with 2 guys pull up, jump out. Both of the guys had guns. And the guy put a gun in my best friend's head. We told him that day, said, give me all the money out of your pocket. He took all his money, took all the money off the ground.
They stuck up the crap game.
Stuck up the crap game, but they're going to kill it. The guy was HIV positive. So he felt like he was already dead. So he told us he would do this to us every day.
Oh, jeez.
So be prepared for me to do this to you. And one of my best friends at the time ran home, got a gun, shot and killed him, 19 years old. He ended up doing 14 years in prison. They were sending him to Trenton State with the lifers. He came home. He's been out of jail now for over 10 years. He's one of my #1 supporters when it comes to recreation. He got a 13-year-old son. He's involved with his son. He's one of my number one credible messengers. I could knock on his door at any time or call him at any time to go help save a kid. With him alone, me and him sitting in the car together, I think we've knocked on at least 15 doors now of parents who had issues with their sons, And he's been the person with me going to knock on the door of those shot calls to say, not this kid.
Yeah.
So it's about, at the end of the day, it's about resources. And I can't come to a gunfight with a butter knife. If I'm going to do gang intervention, I got to have somebody that done been in the gang and know what it mean to intervene. Now, on the side of prevention is something different. I never joined a gang. I decided not. That friend of mine that did join a gang, they always told me to stay out of trouble because I was a smart one in our community.
You're a neutron.
Yeah, I was John. Nah, man, go to school.
John Neutron.
We on our way to the bus to go. We on our way to the bus stop to get on the bus to go to school. They got a rent-a-wreck in the parking lot. 4 of them about to get in. They skipping school, but they making sure I get on the bus. That's what I've always been.
Yeah.
So in my community, I was protected. I was guarded, and I was also encouraged to do something different. I got a good friend right now who's on his way home, man. He go in front of the judge on the 29th of this month. He's been incarcerated for 20 years, a conspiracy to sell drug charge. Got a kingpin racketeering charge, but it was gang-related. So he's been in jail. He never got caught with a single gram of drugs, but it was a conspiracy. Well, he been doing a program for me called From Behind the Wall for the last 5 years, talking to kids from the position of being inside of a correctional facility. He's been to 16 different states because he's serving federal time. So he's been able to help kids that I thought I was going to lose. Jamal Brown graduated from college. Jamal's currently an author, living Atlanta, Georgia. One of my good friends pen-palled him for 5 years. So there's resources out there. We just got to get to them.
Sure. And we thank you, John, and the credible messengers like you that are out there on the front lines. And thank you to Quan for submitting that awesome video box. I just want to say very quickly that this has been another episode of Chatting with Cumberland, and we hope that it helps. We look forward to having John back sometime, and to season 2, which will cover some of the juvenile justice aspects that our communities face now currently, especially with the COVID pandemic. And we're going to sit down and do another episode with John regarding his testimony. So if you'd like to hear more from him, please check out the video link in the description. There's also links for all the services that we spoke about today, including those for revolving around mental health and also for gang life. And please feel free to leave a comment in terms of if you'd like this interview or not. And in the meantime, tune in, turn up, get lifted.